Smithers. Smithers, you're on, quickness training. Johnson? Johnson, you're, strength training. Today, strength training. One. And Khmelev, you're on crossing. Hey, Khmelev. You're on crossing today.
This does not seem beneficial.
What do you mean?
To me, it is not beneficial.
It's like, I'm the coach. That's what I told you to do. Today is the day that everybody has been waiting for some time. At least it feels like everybody's been waiting for some time. I'm making a training video. This is a video that it took me some time to get comfortable with making it. I had to do a lot of extra research as much as I engage with training on stream, which of course you can check out down in the description below. I stream on Twitch 4 days a week. Hope you can join me. I was never super comfortable with all aspects of training, and if I'm going to make a video for you guys, I want to make sure I'm super comfortable in all of the aspects of it. So, Zealand hit the interwebs, read forums, read other things, and now has written a script.
It is what dreams are made of.
And that script contains all of the basic knowledge about all facets of training, and I'm going to make other videos that are deeper dives into those individual sections later, but right now I figured I should do the overview. So this is a training overview. My name is Zealand, and that you're watching this video. That's one heck of an introduction. Look, I've got cool paintings of old buildings behind me in a hotel room. That should sell you. This man's so dedicated, he's making videos from a hotel room. Also, happy birthday, Blissette. Because I have a plan, because I always have a plan for how I'm going to structure this video, we are going to walk through each section, and I'm first going to talk about the practical changes you can make, and then I'm going to talk about the long-term strategies you will want to apply in that section over the course of a season to get the best out of your team and to help your players improve or prevent from getting worse the best. That was a shockingly complicated sentence. And those sections that I'm going to cover the top layer of are team training, individual training, mentoring, units, and coaches. If we're going to go any further, I have to go down to the corner, so I'm going to take advantage of this chair and see ya. In order to do all of this, you're going to need to go to training. Shocking. Here you'll get an overview, but obviously with most overviews, you're not actually going to get the ability to do a whole lot of much from here. So we're going to go straight to calendar, and the first thing we're going to be talking about is team training. Roll it. Roll it back. Bring it up. Bring it out. Bring it up. Stop, please. Calendar is my favorite view to work with full team training. You're going to get options to work with it in your inbox and everywhere else. If I want to work with my team training, I just come to the calendar view. And your team training is already preset for you. There are different tactical sets you can see in different training styles. You can lock in on a particular type of training. You also have, during the preseason, you've got things called like light. You know, what does that mean? Of course, we're going to get into that. For right now, we're going to stay in training style. And you can see as I click, this changes. So this is constructing a different type of work week. If I want to work on attacking, if I want to work on possession, if I want to work on defense, it will give you a preset. It's always going to do that. If the training, which gets scheduled like, you know, forever out once the season is scheduled, it is messed up because a match is scheduled after that. Like you win a cup match and your next cup match is scheduled, and you see that you don't have a recovery after the match and a match preview before, then what you can do is click on that week's training and then just click to whatever it wanted to be on before, and it will reset it with a match preview and recovery before and after because now it recognizes that that match is there. The good news about this is that most of your team training is done for you. You actually are making changes around the periphery of the team training. This is, of course, the approach that you can take if you're me, if you're somebody that wants to live inside of training. You can actually go to something called schedules, where you can select a schedule. You can say, I want to do a training style section. I want to do attacking training for 2 matches, and then you have your attacking training for a 2-match week, and you can construct like a full schedule and plan it out, which is something you could apply to what you're about to learn here. But I prefer to just work with what I have in front of me and then add on to it, or remove something if I'm feeling frisky. The way you do this is by clicking on a training section. When you do that, a pile of sections will come up for you. You have your general sections, then you have attacking, defending, technical, tactical, and goalkeeping sections, which will all kind of fit into the same bin of locking in and focusing on one thing in particular. You have set pieces, which is a little different. You won't see yourself doing that as much. You have physical. You have extracurricular, which, you know, bonding. That's what me and the editor do all the time. Bonding. You have match preparation as well, which these are going to be less physically intensive training sessions, but they're training sessions that can be very useful, or else they wouldn't be in the game. Now, from all of these, you can click on them and it will tell you what they're going to work on. Overall is obviously going to work on everything, literally everything. But what's important is that you're training in the general sections, and your overall, your outfield, you'll see this section called tactical familiarity. That's important. When you go to tactics, you have something called familiarity. This is how familiar you are with a tactic. So, more familiarity in your training is going to create more familiarity in your tactic. That's why if I click on this, go to preseason, and go to normal mid, you're going to see a lot of overall and outfield, because what do these work on? Tactical familiarity. Now, if I go to attacking, just click on some random thing, there is not a whole pile of tactical familiarity. There is just a more focused tactical familiarity. So you're going to get that tactical familiarity, say it 5 times faster if you do overall and outfield training, and if you do tactical attacking shadow play and defensive shadow play. But really, overall and outfield are the way to go here. As such, if you're super familiar with your tactic, which at this point in the season, I'm pretty familiar with it, tactic you saw I've been tweaking with a little bit, you can lock in and do something like attacking training, where if you click on this, you're on attacking patient. Well, that is just working more on a specific collection of attributes. And you might be sitting there wondering, how much did these trainings affect the attributes that they're showing? Well, there's an impacts section. So you see in attacking, 60% of the impact is going to be on the attacking attributes. 20% of the impact is going to be on the defending attributes for those in the defending quadrant. And then in the goalkeeping quadrant, 20% impact on the goalkeeping quadrant and those attributes for them. That is going to not change inside of a section, but it will change between sections. So if we go in defensive, now all of a sudden the defensive quadrant is over here. The attacking quadrants only get 20% of its attributes and tactical familiarity and everything else. And you'll notice in overall, it's the entire team getting 100% of the impact. Doesn't necessarily make overall and outfield that much better all the time, because obviously the training's a lot more diffuse, right? You're not concentrating on something as much. What it does mean is that if you do attacking training the entire year, your attacking players are going to be much more finely tuned than your defending players or your goalkeepers. So balance, to an extent, is key here. You want to figure out how you will unbalance your training in order to improve your team. You want to go up to Team Report. In Team Report, you can go through your different reports and find out what your team is good and not good at. Obviously, the overall depth of the squad and the fact that I don't have a lot of payroll budget are not things I can fix in training. The fact that we're not the best at marking or tackling is definitely something I can fix in training with a more defensive focus. If you go to comparison, you can see how you stack up against the rest of the league in a bunch of different attributes. So in the midfield, I have superb vision. I got the best vision in the Bundesliga, but I've got pretty bad stamina. You know, I got pretty bad tackling, and you can see my defending, we're actually really bad at heading the ball, but we're quick. We got good acceleration and pace past the mean of the average Bundesliga defenders. There's a wealth of information in here. I won't get lost in it, but you can figure out with this comparison and all the different reports in your team report what your team needs to work on if you want to tilt your team training in a certain direction. Now that you understand what team training is and what it's going to affect, that sort of thing, this is how you change it. You click on whatever day section you want to change. You get 3 sections per day unless you're traveling or playing a match, right? So in that section says rest right now, which is a thing that you can find in the physical section. You can find rest, right? And then you want to say, I want to put another technical bit of training in here. So let's go with play from the back. That's going to teach my team to shockingly play from the back. And I can actually add multiple before I click confirm. So I'll go to this one and I'll stay in technical and I'll work on See, we're already doing ball retention. Let's work on it again, because I think that's really important. We need to improve our first touch or something, because our first touch is bad as a team. Then the one hidden gem that you just don't know about is after a match, which this is the day after a match. There's something called a match review, which won't pop up after any other day, and it increases your team cohesion and improves your tactical familiarity, and it's not intensive at all. Like, it has no effect on the squad's fitness, so it's a nice thing to put after a match that just helps you without hurting you at all, and the game will not add it. So go in and add a match review. It's basically the counter to a match preview. So now I've added all those things. I click confirm, and the changes are made. As for the progression of training throughout the year, obviously you're going to want a lot of overall and outfield at the beginning of the season to help with your tactical familiarity, to bring everybody together, to learn how to play in the system. You're going to want to use more physical trainings. So you're going to want to go into this physical section, and you'll see when you set a preseason type of training, right, you're going to get, if you go heavy, you're going to get more physical training. So heavy late is going to be less intensive, apparently, but like heavy early is going to be incredibly physically intensive, but light early is only going to focus on outfield and overall. As the season goes on, your players get more jaded. If you played the game long enough, you get that message that says, hey, this guy's a little tired and he could use a match off or a month off. And you're sitting there like, oh, this guy's soft. Like, why can't he play 75 matches in 1 year? What's wrong with him? Well, he's jaded, and it's become bad enough that it's starting to show. As the season goes on, your players get more and more worn out, especially if you're playing in England, which I always assume the majority of the people watching this video, that's where they're playing, because you've got a lot of matches. Your players are going to get tired, and the more tired they get, the less intensive you want your training to be. So by the time you get to the end of the season, you don't really want to be doing a lot of physicals. And if you've got 2 matches in the same week, you probably want to continue to give players a little bit more of a break, while earlier in the season, you can do more intensive training sessions. Your overalls, your outfields, your physicals, your different specific physical trainings, stacking more training 3 deep, and you can feel this out. It also depends on how determined your squad is, how aggressive they are professionally in terms of wanting to train. They will come and tell you, hey, I don't think we're training enough, hey, I think we're training too much, and you will want to scale it back as you get later in the season, not only to avoid getting jaded, but the injury risk also goes up as the season goes on. Now, to see your injury risk, you can go to rest. This rest section, which I wish I could drag those. Here, it will tell you who has a high injury risk. It will tell you why. It will tell you what the physio recommendation is. Now, we literally played a match today, so this will be different if I go forward tomorrow. It won't be something that you need to switch up after every match, but if you go to this page, you will see what the injury risk is on specific players. If you've got important players that are constantly in a high injury risk in this rest setting, change something. Just keep in mind, lightening your schedule progressively and starting super aggressive is something that's going to work. Now, I wouldn't go heavy every week. That's not what I'm telling you. People will get hurt. People can always get hurt if you push them too hard. It's like driving. You know, just go as fast as you can, and once you see that you're starting to go too fast, you slow down a little bit again, which is a philosophy that blatantly ignores speed limits, but we'll just... If I get sued for a speeding ticket, so help me. The other area that training intensity can be affected, we're about to go to, but before I leave this, one other thing you'll want to tailor your training to is, are you a good team or a bad team compared to your division? You've just gotten promoted. You want to work on things that are going to help your stamina, your work rate, your defending. If you're a team that's the best in the league and you're just trying to break down bad teams, you want to work on the opposite, being able to break them down, play out from the back, and that sort of thing. Don't neglect the other things, but keep in mind what you're trying to do. The other section I'm talking about is the individual section, a section that is wildly intimidating if you've never looked at it before and has made me close it multiple times. In here, you can click through your players and see what they are doing individually on top of the team training. This is not only where you can add player traits, which I have a video about. Of course, I've already made a player trait guide. If you want to learn more about that, please click the link in the top corner. You can add that here, and that does add to a player's workload. You can also add an additional focus. Now you have your outfield player additional focuses, and then if I go to my new goalkeeper, Wilker Farinez, you've got a whole collection of goalkeeper focuses as well. These are broken down into 3 sections. The sections are, well, your attributes training, then you have your set piece training, and then you have your injury rehab training. If you got a guy that gets hurt, once he's cleared for training again, look to see if you can do anything here. It'll help him regain the attributes he's lost. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. If you have a guy that gets hurt, once he gets back to being able to train, go to that injury rehab section of personal training and just see if you can put him on something. He will regain the attributes that he has lost to a much better extent than not, so do it. That's important and it's cool. Sending the dude to rehab. I don't know why that doesn't happen automatically, but if you don't know what these do, you can click on them and it will highlight in blue what that's going to work on. So if I'm working on final third, then he's going to work on his composure and decision making. That's just the movement in the final third. You can also hover over it and save yourself a little bit of time. And there's training for just about everything in here. So if there's a deficiency in somebody's game, then they might be able to improve it by throwing them on this. There is a little hiccup where they might not like the individual training or the amount of training that you've given them or something. Even if it fits and it doesn't cause a huge injury risk for them, they might not like it. And then you'll see in this training report section, which is right next to my head, but you can see it. The training report section, it'll say they don't feel it's beneficial or they don't feel it's producing any results. Now, this comes from the personality and the personality attributes that I describe in a video I will link up there if you don't know what I'm talking about. Some guys like to work harder than others. Some guys like to learn new things more than others. If they have one of those two things pop up, they will just simply not train as well. I've had some experiences where I've left them training it regardless. They've improved in it some, and it ended up paying off. I've had some experiences where their training and improvement will simply stall until I take them off of that and put them on something they don't mind working on. Then the last bit that you can throw onto them is a positional training. This is how you train somebody into a new position. One thing I want you to look out for is if the player is versatile like Emre Can, they're probably more likely, not probably, they are more likely to be able to learn a new position. Where if you find a guy like Manuel Akanji, he probably cannot learn how to play central midfield at this point in his career. And putting them there and putting them in the right role is less than half the battle. You're going to have to play them in that role once they establish a certain amount of comfort for them to actually potentially become naturals in it. It's easier to do this earlier in a player's career. The older they get, the harder it is. You can tweak the intensity of the training by throwing a double, normal, and half in there. Now, I usually just push a player as hard as they can possibly go, especially when they're young, but you want to make sure that you don't get them hurt. It's the same game you're playing with team training. You also have the option to send them on a vacation or just not allow them to train for a couple of days. This is great if you've got match congestion and some dude's really tired, but you need him to be available for the next match. Rest him. That allows us to move on to units. This is something I was talking about when we were in the schedule. You click on this and you click on something and you see these different groups. Well, the different groups, you actually have the ability to send players in between. And this can get real fun when you're talking about like attacking fullbacks or midfielders. What group do you want them to be training with? Offensive or defensive? If you're doing what I like to do and you're like, oh, well, I have a great winger, but he also could be a fabulous wingback, you're going to want to move that guy into the defensive unit because he's got to work on his defensive skills. And, he can work in attacking overlap on getting forward and being a bit more of a difference maker. But you're going to want to be careful with who you're moving back and forth between these groups because obviously it affects a lot what emphasis they're getting on their training. So your central midfielders, it's really whether you want you could move them back and forth throughout the course of the year. That's probably the right way to do it. Outside of that, you have something called mentoring. Now I'm going to make a completely different video on mentoring. It's absolutely guaranteed, but I'll ask my assistant to assign it for now so that we can see what we're looking at. Mentoring is a group of players. Ideally, you want them to be in the same training unit that we saw before. That's really the only specification. People asking, like, well, can a center back be mentored by a striker? Probably not, unless you're able to get them into the same training unit. Obviously, goalkeeper is going to be in their separate plane. And the person that has a lot of influence over the rest of the group is going to be imparting their player traits, personality attributes, and everything else onto the other players into that mentoring group. So be careful because very few personalities will tell you all 7 personality attributes. Then you have the other hidden attributes like versatility, consistency, and big matches and stuff. All of that is going to be imparted on the other players in the group. So what you're looking for is a net gain in that situation. Just tread carefully, like I said. Now there's the coaches section. Now the coaches section is... they shouldn't hide this button. Edit coach assignments is what you should be doing. I don't know why they hide that button so well. And if you look at the bottom of this, you can see the star rating that you are able to produce out of each of these coaching sections. And I do a good job. And above that, you see the workload. And this is how hard that coach is being worked. Now I'm going to try and give this guy a bit of a break. You see how the work rate goes, or the workload goes down from very heavy to average. You want to have a couple of coaches that can spread out and reduce workload, like I am the person that's reducing the workload right now on all of these places, and you want to have coaches that are specifically good at one thing, and that coach is going to be imparting the star rating. And basically what you need to think of is I'm the guy running around setting up the cones for everybody. This guy's actually teaching the lesson in tactical defending. And it highlights exactly what you're looking for that section down below, and there's some more highlighted things behind my head, but I trust you'll be able to figure that out. When you're done with that, and keep in mind that reserve coaches will also play a role in your senior team, and goalkeeping coaches and fitness coaches will handle your entire club. So you don't need youth goalkeeping and fitness coaches. You really don't. You do not at all. I'm dead serious. You don't, but it will affect their workload. Then you just click OK, and you're ready to ball. I usually just set that like once a year. And then at the end of it all, after each training week, you're going to get an update on training performances. If you've played much of FM20 or beyond, you've probably seen this. You'll have the opportunity to, this will be in your inbox, you'll have the opportunity to praise players and chastise players. Don't praise them 2 weeks in a row, but try and praise them as much as you can, and chastise them, but don't chastise them too often either, because they'll get mad. It depends on the player personality, but it's a good rule of thumb. If you're like me and you're training multiple tactics, you can switch the tactic that you are focusing on for that week. I would recommend rotating, even if you're only currently using one, to make sure your team stays sharp in all of them. You go to Club Info Facilities, you can see you have your training facilities and your youth facilities. Misconception, and something that I missaid naturally in the youth intake video, is that your training facilities actually only affect the players that are not into your club yet. Once a player gets into your U19s, U18s, U20s, whatever the heck it is, once they get in there, they're all using the training facilities. That comes straight from SI. It's a little weird, I know, but you have junior coaching, youth facilities. They're both just affecting your players that are before the U19s, right? And then once they come in through your youth intake, they're all using the training facilities. So for our purposes, this is what we're looking at. Superb. And you can improve that by making a board request through Club Vision if you want. And time. How'd we do? Like I said, I took a ton of notes. I put together this massive thing, and I've decided I'm going to make extra videos on mentoring and individual. So if you're looking for more information on that, I'm going to look to get it out in the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a deep dive into both sections and break down long-term strategies that are going to help you win in those sections. I don't think I need to do another video about team training. We really dove into that as kind of the main thing we were talking about in this video. If you disagree, let me know in the comments, and I always read the comments anyways, so I'll see you down there. Have a fabulous day. I'll also see you on the stream. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed, as Reese has got that super cool graphic that pops up at the end anyways, so you can, watch that and follow it or something. You know, it's a free country. Actually, is it? Depends on where you're watching, I guess. We're all free here. You can do whatever the heck you want. Except on Twitch, you got to say Wales. If somebody asks where to manage, you have to say Wales. Okay. Bye. Wah. Attaboy, dude. Attaboy, dude.